Question that I get all of the time is what books do I read and what books can I recommend to help people understand the economy? I'll do a series where I introduce, a set of books that were just formative into how I view the American economy and American public policy. You might be surprised to know that many of them are not about economics. Starting with this first one, which I think is maybe most relevant to what's been going on in American politics, Myth and the Greatest Generation. And if I'm capable of doing the green screen correctly, I'll put it up. The Greatest Generation was a moniker invented in 1998 by Tom Brokaw, who was a broadcast journalist who wrote a book about the men and women who fought in World War II and then afterwards came home and had this like picture perfect nuclear family life. The dad works, the mom stays home, they have two kids. And this was like the zenith of America. And therefore, these were the greatest Americans, hence their name, The Greatest Generation. It was an incredibly popular book. My guess would be that like 40% of dads got the book for Christmas in 1998. It was everywhere. I don't think Brokaw created the mythology. I think he wrote it to a really best selling nonfiction book. But what I appreciate about Myth and the Greatest Generation by Kenneth Rose is he's a social historian who points out just how inaccurate that characterization is. And that's to both a disservice to them and a disservice to us, both to give them features and attributes that they didn't have, and then to put us in comparison of being at fault for not having them. He talks about just the rampant amount of divorce that occurred during World War II, the amount of adultery, the number of abortions, desertion in the armed services, and how high it was because of conscription. The number of men who would say, why are you serving your country in the war? And they were like, yeah, they made me. It's such a it also, World War II is not exactly a moment of racial harmony in the US. I mean, we're deep in Jim Crow. Everything is segregated, and race riots, are a feature of this time period. I think I read this book in several ways. One is I'm a big reader, fiction, nonfiction. I love movies. I love TV. I'm just a big consumer of stories. And the number of things that this book brought up that I've never seen depicted in film or TV or books, I just thought, like, what are we even doing here? Does California have some law that like every fourth movie that comes from a studio has to be about World War II, and yet none of them include, this or this or this? Like I mean, the moment I was reading the book that I think I truly gasped in disbelief was when the San Francisco district attorney says in the city there were more abortions than live births in the year prior. And it's in an article in Harper's that came out in, I think, 44 or 45 about abortion rings along the West Coast and how they're very predatory. So that part, just hearing this information and learning this was so important to how I, viewed the world. But I think what made it so formative was just the extent to which I felt like I didn't know anything about these people. And that is the cost of mythology, is that you undermine yourself and you don't know them. And I've tried to carry that perspective, through how we think about social policy and economic policy. A statistic that really hit like a weight in the stomach in the exit polls were just how many Americans said they thought that America's best time was behind them. And so I go back to a book like Myth and the Greatest Generation because it really hammers home how much this idea that the past is better is driven by mythology, driven by fiction, driven by not seeing people for who they are, which leads to a rejection of the people that we are, that something's wrong with us because we're not like them, but we're not like them because we don't know them. When I recommend a book, it's not because I endorse every part of it. It's not like I'm saying every fact in here is a fact I agree with. Every conclusion here is a conclusion I agree with. I love books when they really make me think and consider not just what I thought about something specific, but my entire perspective. And this book shifted my perspective. And it made clear to me how dangerous America's obsession with the past, its glorification of World War II in the 1950s, and just what kind of foundation that it was on. And it's a foundation of mythology. So I'm going to recommend it. I think you should. I mean, I loved it. I think you should read it. It totally shifted my perspective, but it is not in wide print. It could be hard for you to find. I have a bookshop page where I have like a storefront on Bookshop where I recommend books, and if you buy from my bookshop, I get affiliate links. But like this book is like $60. Oh, here we go. Six. Oh, why am I holding it up? It's right behind me. Anyway, it's not the easiest to find book. So that was my only hesitation in recommending it, is that it's not like it's was a bestseller. Believe it or not, The Greatest Generation, a myth promulgation machine, did really well in the like actually they were just humans did not do as well. But I highly recommend this book. I have a link to my bookshop on my link in bio. If you go, you can see where I recommend the book. It's definitely on online sellers. It might be at your library, but even if you don't read the book, please take on face value that there is no generation of Americans that is divinely good or divinely better than who we are and the people that we are. We've always been a combination of great and ugly, making choices, making mistakes, and they don't deserve to be held so high, and we don't deserve to be brought so low. And you can't believe that the future will be better if you have been fooled into thinking the past was the best.